minutes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and it's such a nice, salubrious setting. 2 years ago, when Arun Jaitley presented his first budget, Times Now's Arnab Goswami, his headline was, "It's a game changer budget." When I was on the show, I said, sorry, it's a name changer budget. It took all the old programs, packaged them with a new name. Again, this time we're talking about whether this budget is a transformative budget. The word transformative must have some meaning. 1991, when Manmohan Singh presented his budget and ushered in liberalization, that was a transformative budget. Taken together, Chidambaram's budgets, when he introduced a new paradigm for social safety nets through the rights-based approach, Manrega and others, that is a paradigm shift, that's transformative. But to call the latest budget transformative would be to lose sense of what the word means. I'm afraid that Mr. Jaitley talked about 9 pillars that he was erecting here, but these are random pillars that don't really hold up the economy or any other edifice that we would like to erect. Let's take some of those pillars. The central thrust of my friend Sudesh Verma's speech was focused on the NDA's discovery or rediscovery of rural India, of farmers. That itself is a transformation, it's a welcome transformation, so maybe we should commend them for that. But it's 2 years too late. We've let rural distress get worse. And when you actually look at the claims that have been made this time, they said we've given the highest amount to Manrega. First, that's factually incorrect. And second, if you look at real terms, add inflation, the cost of living and things like that, and see whether the amount allocated has actually kept pace, to match Mr. Jaitley's rhetoric, the amount would have had to be nearly 60,000 crores, or something really much, much larger. So that doesn't quite work. And then, in a fit of enthusiasm, he has announced that in 5-6 years' time, we're going to see a doubling of farmers' incomes. Now, these kinds of potential jumlas are things that we are very carefully going to monitor. We're going to see every year how much a farmers' incomes increased, how are they going to increase, is it due to increased productivity, or are you going to add to the cost of the food products that they generate? If it's to the cost of food products, then imagine the food price inflation that we would also face as consumers. So that has a lot of trickiness in that particular assumption. Let's move on to another topic which the Prime Minister talked about, education. He said primary education is a real concern. I was happy that he didn't really mention higher education. We know that the BJP government has messed higher education up enough already. And anyway, so in primary education, do we see any new initiatives? Do we see any new money? Nothing significant is added to Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. And it is a tragedy that after all these initiatives over the years, over the decades, we still have ASER reports which suggest that 5th standard children can't do 2nd grade math. Okay, so these are all real challenges that need to be addressed and needed much more attention from the government. But when you think about 5th standard children not being able to do 2nd grade math, it turns out that even the finance minister can't do 2nd grade arithmetic. His numbers don't add up. He will say this much for this budget item, this program, something else. And then when you look at the end and say, where is the money coming from? He says, well, we'll figure it out. Something, we will sell some spectrum, we will get some more oil bonanza, we will disinvest some more under a new name. Now, last year's disinvestment targets were not met. What faith do we have that this year's will be? So these are issues that we have, and these are matters of great concern. See, I talked about transformative, right? You know, if there was a new way of thinking, a new way of spending, a new way of coming up with a method of achieving economic goals, etc., then you might give them that benefit of doubt and say, maybe you're moving in that direction. But if you look at this one great achievement, sticking to fiscal deficit targets, they stuck to this year's target and they've met it, and he's assured us that he will meet the target next year as well. But if you look below this, How does he do this? You discover that there is no long-term plan, there is no strategy. Last year, we took the oil price bonanza, the cut in international crude oil prices, and instead of passing it on to the common man, decided to pocket it and meet our fiscal deficit targets. Next year, again, disinvestment and spectrum sale. Right? This is not a long-term strategy. And so he talks about, we'll come up with a new scheme, new commission, which will change the rules, will give a range, etc. So this doesn't sound transformative at all to me. Beyond just that, I want to point out that there are some counterproductive initiatives in this budget.
Last 1 minute you have.
Okay. See, if you had cut oil prices, this would have lowered regressive taxes, indirect taxes, and you would have given a boost to the economy. You would have seen the RBI cut tax rates, and then you would have seen economic growth at a much higher level than we saw. That didn't happen. Now, when you look at the EPF, does the government know what it's doing? It's not at all clear. It's going after the salaried person and targeting them in no uncertain manner. On infrastructure, there is talk about they've increased coal cess, which is going to make power costlier and make in India harder. And when it comes to this whole new waterway, Sagarmala, etc., only 600 crores have been allocated to all that in ports. Now, Mr. Gadkari, we know he's very good at financial jugglery. He has a record of that. But how is he going to do this? Even he will find it very hard.
30 seconds.
And the banks have not been capitalized enough. Their NPAs are very substantial. We needed a lot more. We can only say at the end that this is a budget that induces prayer. Prayer to the rain gods, prayer to the oil gods, prayer to the RBI god. And finally, all I can say as I conclude is we are worried about NPAs. It turns out that India's biggest non-performing assets are Arun Jaitley and Modi Sarkar.